Hey everyone, this is a devlog for Cyber Fury, a fast-paced boomer shooter I'm making. In this devlog I'll be focusing on making a character controller. The reason I decided to start making this game is that after working full-time as a mill engineer for 3 years, I realized I don't really want to work 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. So I decided that I need to change the approach. I need to cut out the middleman and go sell my value directly to the end user. And the first thing that came to mind is making a game. Because come on, who doesn't want to make a game? After deciding on making a game, the first thing I started from is analyzing the current game market to choose the genre in which I will be making it. After looking into stats on GameStats.com, it became really clear really fast that it shouldn't be a 2D game, since most of the 2D games don't make even $600. So after sorting by median revenue and filtering tags with minimal number of games that earned less than $5,000, we are left with this list. Tags in which I can reasonably make a game are 4X and Boom Shooter. I like 4X games, but then I remember some games I played like Ultra Kill, Doom, Quake 3 Arena, and yeah, we're going with Boom Shooter. A game genre is not everything. We also need some content, and there are some tags we can apply on top of it, like villain protagonist or based on a novel. I think I can write a short novel before I finish the game. Also dwarves. Dwarves are cool. By the way, on completely unrelated note, the elves are down at the bottom. As for the genre, I'm thinking about cyberpunk, since a lot of my favorite games like Valhalla, Cyberpunk 2077, Mirror's Edge are based in it, and also it will make it easy to explain some of the player's abilities with augmentations. So before I start doing literally anything, I decided to analyze what makes a good shooter good, and I came up with 5 pillars. Movement, gun and gunplay, enemies, levels, visuals and sound. The first two are related to mechanics, third and fourth are about content, and the last one is presentation. For indie games and shooters specifically, I think the mechanical depth and complexity is the most important part of the game. Not to say that other aspects are not, but still. And if we look closely, one is actually slightly more important than the other, because while yes, you do a lot of shooting in the shooter, let's say you shoot 80% of the time, but at the same time you move 100% of the time. So I decided to start making a game from a character controller. I also wanted to be relatively feature complete before I start working on any levels or enemies, and the reason is that you can think of mechanical features as a container into which you pour all your content, like enemies and levels. And it is a lot easier to expand this container while it is empty rather than full. After coming up with some kind of small plan, I needed to decide on tools I would be using. Unity went out of the window immediately, because I had some experience with it and I didn't like it that much. I also didn't really like the idea of using Unreal, because I'm not that comfortable with C++, and I would rather commit some unspeakable actions than use blueprints. And then I remembered seeing devlogs by Blargis about somewhat similar type of game, and he was using Godot. So I looked into it and I quite liked it. Especially how GDScript is basically a Python. So I opened Godot and started working a tutorial by Lucky, and in 2 hours or so I had a working FPS controller. It's a good beginner tutorial, but I didn't really like the resulting code, it was quite messy, so I spent some time switching to the state machine pattern using this excellent write-up. I then added some coyote time to a jump. Then I found this tutorial that implemented Quake source-like engine movement, implemented it, but in the end didn't like how it felt. Another video on this channel is a really good tutorial on how to make smooth stairs, so I added that. I also used it to implement vaulting. After that, I added infinite wall running like in Ghost Runner, dashing, improved slide to switch from fixed timed slide to applying friction and increasing speed when moving on slopes, because it was really cool how it was done in Mirror's Edge. And I also added grappling hook, ground slam and air jump. Also, I added a simple action cost system to prevent dashing and jumping infinitely. I thought this is a good number of movement options, so I stopped and started polishing and bug fixing. Jump into the game, move around, then jump into the other games like Ultra Kill or Ghost Runner to see how they handle certain aspects of movement. Jump back, tweak, fix bugs, rinse and repeat. Basically trying to make it feel as good as the rest of the competition. With controller reasonably feature complete, I decided to add some sounds and visuals, to see if adding them impose some architectural changes that I need to account for going forward. For sound, I decided to start using Fmod from the get-go, since it seems to be the industry standard and seemed to be relatively easy to integrate, which turned out to be true. Then I made the most got-able footsteps and dashing sounds. Listen to this. And added them into the game. As for visuals, I added a grappling rope, speed lines when dashing, and shockwave then landing in the ground slam. While adding this stuff, I didn't really like how precise you need to aim the grappling hook, so I added some grace like this by casting a batch on rays from the center of the camera, and now you don't need to aim exactly to the surface, which is nice. And we're done. So what's the plan? I spent some time thinking, and this is what I came up with. For a lot of channels like GMTK, Blargis, and others, I understood that one of the most important things is playtesting, so I want to start doing it as fast as possible. For this purpose, I want to make a prototype by the next Steam Next Fest, which is October 14th. I will not be participating in it, and I don't think I will be able to finish the prototype by this date, but I think it's important to set tight but reasonable deadlines to pace yourself correctly. After doing that, I want to start collecting feedback and adding enough content to release into early access. Ideally, I would like to do that by the start of the next fest, which is around March. And after that, it's too far to plan right now, but hopefully to do a full release in a year or two. This might seem ambitious, but I think it's possible, and hopefully I will not miss these deadlines by more than a factor of 2. At the end of the day, I don't want to become like insert your favorite devlog YouTuber that has been making their game for the past 6 years, and actually finish my game. So what do I plan to have in the prototype? First, guns. A somewhat standard array of a melee weapon. I'm thinking of something like Mantis Blades from Cyberpunk, though if finding a model and making the animations would be too hard, a sword is fine too. A hitscan pistol with alternative fire of piercing multiple enemies, and a shotgun with a grenade alt, you know, the classics. Second, enemies. 2 variants, melee and rage, nothing fancy. Third, levels to play. First, a standard level that will be serving as a tutorial, and the other one is Endless Fighting Arena. For the first approximation, I plan to implement something like Cybergrind from Ultrakill, since I really like it, and there is already an editor for it, but I do plan to expand it. I don't like how you can't make bridges and overhands, and 16 by 16 grid seems a bit restrictive. So that's the plan. We will see how it will go from here. If I actually make a second video, it will be on implementing guns and enemies since they go hand in hand. As the final thing, I want to do some bookkeeping, like overview of current project complexity and count some imaginary money. So right now, project sits at 37 script files and about 1400 lines of code. Now let's talk about how much time it took for me to make. For character controller, like coding and debugging, I spent around 33 hours. Surprisingly, the hardest movement to make feel good was wall running. There were a lot of bugs and it didn't feel nice, so I spent quite a lot of time on it, around 10 hours. In hindsight, it would probably have been more informative if I split up coding and debugging time, but it's quite hard to do since you often do it simultaneously. For sound, I spent about 3 hours, and for visuals and UI combined about 6, which is a lot compared to the amount of stuff I made and also its quality. Like, I made 2 effects and that's it. But I hope I will become faster at this. Also, I didn't know that making this video would take me so long. I guess being a YouTuber is a real job, huh? So, in the end, how much imaginary money did it cost? Right now, my job pays me around $35 per hour, so if we plug that in total it cost around $1,800, which is a lot compared to what I achieved. But this is the end of the video, and I hope to see you the next time.